How's everybody doing today? Happy Sunday. Oh, I'm trying to get it together. Let's see what's going on. Well, let's hit it. Power outage. North Carolina's out. 40,000 people have no power because it was vandalism. So, of course, we put that on the physical attack from cybersecurity. So, that's what we're going to talk about today. So, I just decided to do a quick live on it. Let people fall in. That's I don't know. I'm always about electric grid, critical infrastructure. That's definitely on top of people's lists is when you have no power, right? So that's actually really falling after Texas when they actually got hit by a storm though. But um, once again, North Carolina's down. We're about to chop it up. Salute to Wayne. Glad he can join us from Mexico. So we're going to talk about North Carolina that got hit by vandalism. We're going to put that under physical infrastructure for cybersecurity. So we're about to go over a quick article and chop it up. The weird thing is I got about 3 videos talking about the power grid. So I'm just going to look at a couple of those and just kind of maybe replay them and chop it up. I always say for your personal life, you need to plan. If you didn't have power for 48 hours or 3 or 4 days and it's cold, what's your plan, right? So I guess this is a little, I'm going to call it validation or vindication for me, but I'm always talking about you got to be ready for when somebody attacks the power grid, right? Crazy thing is, and I'm going to go over it, there was a huge 60 Minutes on. Shout out to Blind Guy, his wife and their life. 60 Minutes did a huge segment on how weak our power grid is, right? So somebody actually physically took down North Carolina's once again, which I believe they're calling it a domestic terrorist, all right? But could it be a nation state? Could it be some screwy people? And we're gonna get into it. You can really take down a whole national power grid by taking out about 3 or 4 power plants. You could take down the whole country, but hopefully the terrorists don't be that smart. Once again, you know how we do it. Put any questions or statements in the chat, and we'll go over them. I'm going to hit the article, then we can get into it. What's going on? Let's see. So there it is. This came out today at it's last night at 10:15. Nearly 40,000 people are in the dark at a massive power outage that hits Morgan County. Vandalism targets substations, official says. Salute to Hillman. And we talked about that in a couple other live streams. You know that the power grid was weakened even on the 60-minute segments, and we'll go back and chop it up a little bit about that. Congress has been talking about this forever, and people actually been shooting at a couple power stations for the last couple years trying to take them out. So they were talking about fortifying them so it wouldn't happen. Once again, let's read this quick article. About 38,000 Duke Energy customers were in the dark Saturday night after a power outage from vandalism in Moore County, official says. The outage begins sometimes around 7 p.m. and impacted a large portion of the county. Duke Energy website listed restoration time of 10 p.m. Sunday. Oh, wow, which is today. The county has 47,000 Duke Energy customers, so 38,000 outages in the county is a large percentage. Here's a little picture of the map. So really just one county, but if this really was a nation state or a rogue unit, right, they could really just go through and just keep taking substations out. There's really very security at substations. I drive past them all the time, and you probably see them too. A lot of them small and sometimes big. That's crazy. Got to rebuild and protect the country infrastructure. Facts. That is true, Helmet. Shout out to Blind Guy, his wife. Get my likes up. Shout out to me. So let's keep reading. Let's see where. Yep. Duke Energy website listed no cause of the outage. The Morgan County Sheriff said vandalism at the power station caused the outage. I'm surprised they let the county sheriff say that, really. The reason why a lot of times is, you don't want people to know what they're looking at. You don't want people to panic. So a lot of times they usually say we're still investigating. So I'm really surprised that they let that out so quickly. As the utility companies began to respond to different substations, evidence was discovered that indicated that the intentional vandalism has occurred at multiple sites. Wow, that's substantial. According to part of the news released from Morgan County, Chief Deputy Richard Maness. So obviously, it was more than one substation. So obviously, that could be a coordinated attack or somebody, they're really attacking it, right? When you talk about multiple substations. The outages include 2,000 just south of Carthage, 11,000 in South Pines. I don't know anything about North Carolina. 11,000 in Pinehurst and 5,000 in Aberdeen. Some of the power outage stretched out to Fox County. So here's a better map showing that the outage. So once again, that's got to be multiple substations that's doing that. Let me get this quick drink of water. So those are the big areas right there. The crazy thing I always worry about is, and we in cybersecurity, right? Is this an isolated event, or are people practicing to do a nationwide attack on multiple states, multiple sites, trying to take the whole country out, right? Because if you're successful at taking out something small, once again, is that them practicing on getting something bigger? In cybersecurity, a lot of times people don't realize is people ask me, why do people attack super small businesses and home networks? People are practicing, right? Years ago, I actually got hacked when I first got in cybersecurity. A friend of mine came over and looked, and somebody changed one of my languages to French. So I asked him, I said, why they change my language to French? They practicing like you practicing, right? I was practicing on spinning up servers in 3 tiers. This is probably 2009, right? So people practice on smaller targets to get ready for bigger targets. So is this somebody practice on a smaller target to get ready for a bigger target? So the village of Pinehurst released a short statement about the outage. We're aware of the major power outage affecting Moore County. Get my screen to come back. It's going. Additional officers have been called to assist. So when they call in additional officers, FBI is going to show up. CIA is going to show up. CISA, which is Critical Infrastructure Agency. So now all the big guys going to show up, because when you're talking about, once again, critical infrastructure, even at the smaller sites, so they got to figure out. So the big guys show up. I'm sure people are on airplanes. Shout out to Struggle Security. Some of the big dogs, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Mandiant, some of those guys are going to get on a plane. They're going to get on site. It's going to be about easily 100 people going to show up in this site in the next 24 hours. They're probably already there because this happened last night. So a lot of people got woke up last night. We are aware of major outages. Moore County additional officers are called to assist. Jeff Brooks with Duke Energy said there's no estimate when all the power will be restored. He also said there are failures at multiple substations in the county. Brooks later said there were signs of vandalism to equipment, which is being investigated. On Sunday morning, Governor Roy Cooper said he has spoken with both Duke Energy and law enforcement concerning the outage. That's the governor right there on the tweet. But once again, is when a state, even though it's a county, gets attacked, FBI showing up, CIA, CISA, Critical Infrastructure, Department of Homeland Security, they all in the war room right now trying to figure out what's going on, right? They're calling every other state right now, telling them you need to start checking stuff out. You need to start looking at, and we're gonna look at it. They got these power grids, so you can see these dials that tell you what's going on your power grid. They got everybody double checking, and I'm just jumping out there. people got drones in the air. I promise you, they got drones in the air circling over the big power station, because some of those transformers are custom made. They take a year to make. All right. When they start stepping down energy, you just can't go buy one of those off the shelf, right? So that's one big issue with the power grid that they're trying to figure out. A lot of that stuff is custom, and a lot of those things are 2 or 3 ton transformers. You got to put them on like a huge semi. Like I said, you're just not running a Home Depot and getting these, right? Let's see what the governor said on his tweet. Governor Roy Cooper, NC governor, I have spoken with Duke Energy and law enforcement official about the power outage in Moore County. They are investigating and working to return electricity of those impacted. The state is providing support as needed. All right. RC, Brother Roy Cooper. Which it took me a while to figure out that when you have a major event, governor's going to come out, senators are going to come out. The reason why is they want to make sure they have control of the situation. If they don't look like they have control of the situation, those people will not be elected. Once again, a lot of people know I worked at state agencies, and we talked about that when we did our incident response. I was talking to somebody. I said, "Oh, we will report that to the news." She goes, "Oh no, that would go to the governor's communication staff. If it's a big enough attack at a state agency, that rolls up to the governor, and he wants to be in front of that. He has a whole communication team." Once again, I used to work at a big state agency, and we talked about incident response. You start talking about your communications team talking to the governor's communication team, because he wants to be in front of that, right? He wants to be leading that. All right. So you just can't go out talking about you gonna call the news. So we'll drill down a little more on that. Here's the full release. Morgan County Sheriff Ronald Fields report the massive power outage across counties being investigated as a criminal occurrence. After 7 p.m. on Saturday, December the 3rd, 2020, several different communities across Morgan County began experiencing power outages. As the utility began responding to different substations, evidence was discovered that indicated that it was intentional vandalism and has occurred at multiple sites. Once again, it's in multiple sites. It's not a rare occurrence. So this is, even though it's a small attack, they're going to call this a coordinated attack, right? Because it's in multiple sites. Evidence was discovered, once again, intentional vandalism, multiple sites. Morgan County Sheriff, deputies, and various other law enforcement agencies within the county responded to different areas and providing further site security. So that's the big deal. Most of those substations aren't really secure. They've been building walls around them, but there's no personnel security. I think they're just now getting webcams up. Most people wouldn't think who would attack a substation, right? Well, you see now. So let's see what's going on. Shout out to rereading that. Facts. We got to rebuild and protect the county infrastructure. Yeah, we need to figure out what's going on with the smart school. Yep, it's coordinated. That's why I said FBI, CIA, they all up in the air. CISA, Critical Infrastructure Agency, they up in the air. They all in the war room. It wouldn't surprise me if Biden wouldn't be getting a call. They probably wouldn't wake him up for this, but he's definitely going to get a call to get a briefing. It's interesting out here for sure. That's a good word for it. So you're going to call the news when you get facts. Nah, I ain't doing that, man. You can get blackballed in this industry real quick. Nah, so it's just weird. I just had to learn, because sometimes I was thinking, oh yeah, our agencies, because we had a communication team. Our communication team was about 5 people. I said, oh, our communication team. They're like, oh no, this is going up to the governor's communication team, because an event this big that's for the governor, right? That's his level of communication, right? I worked at DOD in big organization. There is a chain of command. If it gets broken, people get fired. So shout out to me. I know my level. So let's look at, I pulled up some other. Once again, I did 3 videos at there in the description if you bored. You want to check them out. So let's look at some other slides I did for big ones. So let's look at this one. This is super short. I did this in May of 2021. Shout out to me, my thumbnail's getting better. So let's roll through this one real quick. So I talked about the grid. I said it will be hacked and shut down. Shout out to me. I predicted this. This was 21, February 21. No, I'm just joking. Alert, red team, phishing, hackers. I always said Ukraine was the blueprint, right? Because they were tracking Ukraine. Shout out to Engineering Cannabis. But to be aware, see if the attacker's digital footprint. Oh yeah, facts. He's right. They're definitely doing it. Because a lot of times before you do a physical attack, you do your reconnaissance electronically. So once again, this is what I did last year. So let's just hit it. Biden did have a 100-day plan. That's what came out about it. I just talked about CISA. So the Biden's National Security Council spokesman Tuesday, Department of Energy is partnership with CISA, cybersecurity infrastructure, and the electricity sector, right? So they were talking about this when Biden first got elected. How do you secure the electric grid, right? So obviously they didn't put that 100-day plan in action, well, right? The 100-day plan is include aggressive but achievable milestones, which assist owners and operators to modernize cybersecurity defense, include enhancing detection and mitigation, and forensic capability, right? So forensic is what happened, how can we figure it out, right? So this is off his plan. So infrastructure attacks that happen, solar winds, AWS, Azure, price water infrastructure, private companies, all right? So just different infrastructure attacks. So in Ukraine, 7,000 people lost power because Russia attacked them. There was some analysis of it. One of the viruses was called sandworm. So PricewaterhouseCoopers stated Colonial should be on the first line of defense, public and private partnership. So Colonial was the pipeline, right, that got attacked. So electricity is critical infrastructure, and gas, we know, right? Gas prices spiked up, right? So this was Biden's 100-day plan. So he was talking about what he was going to do for critical infrastructure. So just oversight, and these are some of the agents that are that were looking over the Colonial pipeline. That's definitely going to be looking over this event. We talked about the FBI, Department of Homeland Security. CISA's the big one, probably, because there's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency. Once again, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Energy, DOD, right? A lot of times DOD is in there because you're talking about defending the whole United States. Department of Transportation, they probably won't be in this one, right? But the big ones are FBI, Department of Homeland Security, CISA, Cybersecurity Infrastructure, probably Department of Energy and DOD. I'm just envisioning that they're in the war room right now, like Engineer Cannabis says, going over what happened, going over any digital footprints. We talked about this, and shout out to my man Keep It Techie, right? They're gonna put a blanket around it, right? Anybody's cell phone that was on there in a mile radius that was around there when that happened, they're gonna be getting rolled up on, right? So we talked about triangulation and pinging. We talked about cover, so they can do in the last 12 hours anybody's cell phone that drove through that area, you will be getting pulled up on. So once again, that was super short. Then I did a long one. We could just gonna peek at this quick, then we're gonna read the article again. This was super long, and I'm old. The power in the whole country went out in I want to say 2008. Let me bring that up. Is that it? So yeah, we talked about it in depth. Once again, those are in the description if you want to go check them out. Let's just talked about energy. We talked about how you step through power grids. Some of these transformers are custom made, so if they got blown, you're gonna have to probably reroute power till you get that fixed and get that remade, and that's what Duke is looking for, right? Business continuity. What does that mean? Is when the power goes out in a second, your state, your governor needs to have a plan for you to get the power up, right? Civil disorder, terrorism, incidents, contingency planning for emergency power, house, fuel, food, development of detailed plan, right? So that's what your state should be doing. That's what your governor should be doing, right? So that's why he's in front of that, right? So let's look and see. Yep. Yep, a lot of analysis going on, like we talked about. Once again, they're pulling everybody's cell phone up in there. um, I would see probably drones in the air. If anybody bought a lot of ammunition in that area, so a lot of people. I started playing with forensic capability cybersecurity using data to see if numerous attacks are related. Facts. Yep. That's what because remember, he said there was multiple sites in there. So we know this is coordinated within the state. So now the question is it coordinated to a bigger part of you? If you all under suspicion. Yeah, if you under there, if you in that area, you definitely gonna be pulled up on. So that's the good and bad thing about it, right? And that's what we got to talk about too from a privacy standpoint. Is that overstepping, or do we need to catch the terrorism, right? So that's one thing we're gonna start talking about in the future is what is that line Black Guy, his wife in their life is what is the line, right? Is it no, you can't look up anything or you get to look up everything, right? But it's somewhere in the middle. What is that line, right? Once again, this just talks about, and we went on there once again, you could look in there how that actually works, right? You got generation power plants. You connected. There's your substation right there in the middle. Let me take that off so you can see the full diagram. Right, you get connected consumers, load, and service areas. That substation's out, so that whole service area is out. Right, they took out multiple substations, so multiple service areas were out. Right, so we knew that. So from a smart grid standpoint, what we need to get to, and we're not gonna get it. That's all the things that really go into when you get electricity, right? You got markets, operations, service providers, consumers, distribution. I think we just take electricity that it magically shows up at your door. There's a lot go into it, right? And shout out to Struggle Security. When you got SCADA controls up here, those are actually electric controllers that are connected that you can attack through cyber attacks, right? To take down a substation, right? So you could do it through cyber attacks, or you could do it physically by vandalism or shooting it up, right? There's a couple ways to do it, right? But that shows you it from cybersecurity. Once again, I dabble in critical infrastructure, so here and the grid is connected to underpinning nearly every sector of critical national infrastructure. There's 16 things people deem as critical infrastructure, and if you think most of those, you need electricity, right? They depend on electricity in some way, right? So that's kind of like the the underpinning, like you said, of all that other stuff, right? If you got a nuclear power plant, if it doesn't have electricity, right, it can't do what it needs to do, right? Water or hydro, right? A lot of trading needs electricity to do what it needs to do, right? So that's really the base thing. And we as a country needs to modernize and get it to the smart grid, right? To whatever that actually means, right? So like I said, I'm just shooting through these. So I think that was Biden's 100-day plan right there. Critical infrastructure depends on the United States depends on critical infrastructure, particularly of the electric power grid, as well as critical infrastructure sector of some. A successful nuclear pulse could take out the electric grid. That was actually done in a paper, right? So the government is actually testing it and trying to see what's going on with it too, right? So it's just not one-sided, right? That's what we're gonna be if we don't have electricity. Shout out to The Walking Dead, one of my favorite shows. I didn't watch the ending. I need to watch the next 2 seasons, but we're gonna be out here with no power, man, trying to get food, trying to salvage and scavenge it up, right? We all gonna be. That's one people think is a joke, but man, we didn't do well with toilet paper, man. So if you didn't have power for 3 or 4 months, people actually think you would end up in this scenario where people would be grouping up and going to get food and water, right? So I don't know if that's an overstep, but we didn't do well with toilet paper. That's all I'm saying, man. We were fighting over toilet paper. So let's see. Blind guy, his wife. If they could hack the region. Then I'm thinking they could protect the location or reroute the location to someone else grab my phone. Oh yeah, facts, facts. The thing a lot of times about it is a lot of times you get rogue groups who are not cybersecurity. They're kind of actually more rugged, so they're gonna do vandalism by actually destroying it, right? So they're not cybersecurity. So you would be amazed how many people commit crimes with their phone in their back pocket. So um, I see it. I mean, you see it on the news. People can't live without their phone, and I guess they haven't figured out the phone is the first surveillance method. So now, if you this thing is why it's important. This this is why it's most important, not the most protected. Facts, facts, facts. But two, a lot of times is protection equals money, right? To get things protected, right? And I always tell people money's not infinite, so you got to use your dollars in the most efficient way, right? And us as a country now, we running up deficits like it's crazy, Helmet. So I think you got to figure out where you want your money to spend. A lot of times you don't realize it until something like this happens. Like, oh, I need to get the grid. So this video is I'm old. In 2003, a couple substations went out. See that black mark? That took out that part of the United States, right? So this is not the first time. That time was an accident, they believe. So this time was vandalism. But there's times where you have substation. It's called Cascading. They took a huge part. Not part of that was New York. So they were pulling people out the subway. People were trapped in high rises on elevators. They were pulling them out, right? So it looked like one of them old Bruce Willis movies, man. So 2003 that actually happened, right? So once again, I put my 3 videos in the description, right? So once again, we're gonna talk a little more about that in the future. I'm a big critical infrastructure guy, right? So that's a big part of there is single point of failure. Once again, you won't have cascading failures. Cascading failures is common within the power grids. When one of the elements fail completely or partially, it shifts the load to nearby elements in the system. Those nearby elements then push beyond their capacity, so they become overloaded and shifts to loads to other elements. Become a cascading failure is a common effect seen in high voltage systems where a single point of failure on a fully loaded or slightly over system can create a sudden spike across all the nodes. Right. So when you're looking at this, when you get a couple of nodes, once again, like by God, it gets rerouted. But if the rerouted part's not strong enough to handle that much electricity coming, right, that transformer is going to get overloaded. So after a while, you got to really say, I need to let this part go dark until we figure out, because what happens is each transformer keeps getting overloaded, then the country goes black, right? So that's the part is when you reroute it, if it can't handle that much load, it's gonna pop like in your house. If you reroute it to a different circuit and that breaker can't handle it, that breaker is gonna pop, right, to protect the rest of it. But if you keep rerouting it, the breaker's only gonna keep popping, right? So you got to be careful when you start rerouting. And that's my poor picture of it. So yeah, so that's the cascading part. It starts each part in the blue keeps getting overloaded. Once again, I'm going to drop the link. If you bored, you can come up, or if you just want to chop it up. Once again, I'm just going to go through this real quick. I just saw that and I was thinking, oh yeah, I've been talking about that for a while. So let's see. Sending billions overseas and critical stuff like facts, hell, but I'm leaving that alone. That is facts, man. That is facts, man. We do send a ton of money. Facts. We do send a ton of money. So let's see. We're gonna roll with that. Yep, that's the Senate report. Long-term national scale blackout. Millions of citizens could die. So they actually did a study on that, right? Every human being in the United States is literally on life support. They're plugged into the grid. If somebody unplugs us, everything necessary to sustain our human population stops: food, water, fuel, transportation, medical communications, and financial everything. The electric grid is vulnerable to numerous threats. And we know there was actually a Senate report that in a long-term national scale blackout, millions of United citizens could die. After only a few weeks, we would die in droves from waterborne diseases, starvation, societal collapse, and whatever. And what if the grid went down for longer than a few weeks, right? So the government study said if we went down for a month, you might see once again large scales deletions on that, right? Droves. I'll put the study in the description where they actually talked about that. So these are the top 13. Then once again, I'm gonna go back and read the article. I know we have a few people. The 13 are investor-owned utilities, state-owned municipalities, cooperative utilities, federal provision, federal power marketing administration, transmission dependent utilities. These are different electrical power fundings, grids, and organizations. There's 13 different ways we get power in the United States from different organizations. I was confused when I first read that. I'm like, we don't have one overarching agency that's really in charge of that, which I think is crazy. So you can read them right there. So those are 13 different ways you can get power in there, right? And so it's kind of like this loosely stitched together cooperative. The cool part, though, if you take one out, the other ones would keep going. But the problem with that is you get cascading deletes. Now, when you need to do something from a nation's perspective, you got to kind of bargain with these organizations. There's no national, like you got DOE over energy. They're not really over these electric municipalities, especially the small ones, which once again I thought was crazy. If you check out the larger one, we were showing 60-minute videos clips in there. They were actually talking about in there. So that was one of the weird parts to me, right? And there's some of the different organizations, like when you got the Western, your ERCOT. Then Texas had their own, right? When they went out, they were struggling with the big storm. So they got their own, right? So I think they're trying to get in line, right? Because they were struggling, right? So I think, once again, that was crazy. Once again, I dropped the link. If you want to come up, we just kind of chopping it up. I'm going to reread the article in a minute. So now over 40% of Ukraine is down. Actually, more. Oh, facts. Russia been tearing them up. Russia been tearing them up. Call in topic, restream, facts. Appreciate that. Winter can be crazy times for that anywhere. Oh, facts. But their degree of just really what Texas, because they really don't get cold that way. There was a couple people online was talking about it was crazy. One guy was sleeping in his car, but he had to be careful because you want to get exhaust poisoning. So it was crazy, man. They showed just whole apartment buildings with no power, right? So once again, what would you do if that happened to you, right? So once again, we're trying to get to the smart grid with the modernization, right? So you can actually look at the meters, do a better job, like they said, of rerouting it so you can handle it. And over here, once again, is you got your meters, all of that's IT, right? So a lot of that could be attacked through cyber, attacks, right? So we got to be careful. Even though we modernize, we got to make sure we're not opening ourselves up for a cyber attack in that area too. So. Let's show cyber attack on your electric grids because there's still a lot of PCs and computer stuff in the electric grid and a little bit. So industrial controls, right? That was the SCADA down there at the bottom. Oh, let me unhide that so you can see it at the bottom. Those bugs are software malware and bugs you would use to actually get in and actually hack the electric grid, right? So once again, the industrial controls at the bottom. This is me. I'm AWS. They actually had some critical infrastructure protection at AWS. They sell everything. So AWS, they had some stuff because people are trying to go to smart grid. So AWS, like, you could do it in the cloud and we got your back, right? So now 40%. Yep. So yeah, I think I hit on that. Yep, one it could be crazy. So yeah, shout out to that. Let's see. So that's AWS. That's power grid. So those are the substations and how they're connected. Once again, it's amazing. That's how you get cascading power outages. electricity. This is what you would do. Shout out to engineering. You would use your grid network model, and that will help you not have cascading outages. These tools will help you figure out if that next substation could handle that much power, right? Maybe you need to reroute it and split it between two substations, right? So you need those grid network models, and the problem is when that's happening in real time, you only got a couple hours to figure that out, right? What can we send and where can we route it, right? And a lot of that stuff is happening in real time, and other substations are going down, so your numbers are changing, right? So they have a grid network model, and that would be machine learning and artificial intelligence, right? So we could figure out that so that wouldn't happen, right? Let's see, just whipping through. Once again, they have their special. Amazon actually has a special graph network database for that. And this is the infrastructure they said you would need to help you with cascading outages. So there's companies here. If you got money, they'll help you, right? Shout out to AWS. They have special chips and computers to help you do that type of computation at the speed of light, right? I'm calling the speed of light. So they show you how to do it, and they actually have some architectures out there to help you do it. So and we'll talk about that. So once again, let's go back and read the article real quick. Then we wrap it up. We just give them the highlights. It's super short. Nearly 40,000 in the darkest massive computer outage in Moore County. Vandalism's target substation, officials said. It's in Raleigh, North Carolina. 38,000 Duke Energy customers are in the dark Saturday night after power outage from vandalizing Moore County. It happened 7 p.m. or when they seen it, right? It happened 7 p.m. They hope to have it restored 10 p.m. today. It's 47,000 Duke Energy customers. Let's see, we're going to scroll down. Those are the areas right there. So it was more than one substation. Tweet from the governor. He's spoken with Duke Energy enforcement officials about the power outage in Moore County. They're investigating and working to return the power. Shout out to him. This is the small area. All right. So it's a small area, but once again, we looked at the agencies. They're on site: FBI, CISA, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Energy, DOD. They just trying to make sure it's isolated to this small, and it's not going to be something bigger, and it's not going to be a nationwide attack, right? So let's see what my man Helmut said. As you mentioned, looking to get people and younger people into tech. I recently talked to a few guys and girls. Some are still wide-eyed when I talk to tech. Yeah, that's true, but we got to, and that's one reason I came is, it's nothing to be wide-eyed about. It's just software. It's just computers. It's just a domain discipline, right? It's and obviously we need it. We got hard and critical infrastructure. But yeah, I get that a lot too, Him. And I get a lot of times that, we don't have the best depiction in TV and and in real life, right? So kids do get out there as they could get into it, and some do their best to talk themselves. Yeah, most people imposter syndrome, Helmet. We talk about that a lot. A lot of people don't think they can do it. A lot of people don't think they're smart enough. A lot of people think their math is going to be too hard. And two is there's just a plethora of jobs you can get to in IT, right? And two is that's one reason I came to YouTube to help people, right, and assist people. Like you said, it's crazy. And two is I was, I think you was on the stream is what can we do to get middle school kids in there, right? So we need to start doing the old school thing where we go out to middle school or show up on a Zoom and just start talking about IT as a career, IT as an industry, and the different parts of IT to make sure it's just normalized. It's not this, thing you see on TV where, people are trying to stop GoldenEye. Shout out to James Bond, right? So that's one thing I need to do, and I need to get more people to do that, right? So and two is a lot easier with Zoom. You can get on these calls and just show what that is. I feel like I got to buy a Maserati to put tech bros on the side. Do you think we need to flex to a check? That is a big thing. Shout out to Black Heights. We had that conversation. I don't know, Helmet. I I think we maybe need to flex a little bit. The problem with that is most IT guys, we not really about that flexing, but I think we're gonna need to flex a little bit, a little bit, or at least the movie shouldn't show us as nerds and getting our books knocked out of our hands. Bad boy John Sully, he's 6'9" with the Coke bottle glasses on. Ride along the Asian guy, he was in there, looking nerdy. They were knocking him over, right? So we just need a better depiction in the movies too. If you look at all the movies, unless you a hacker, like I think Swordfish, there's a couple hack. Unless you a hacker, anybody else, man, you looking bad in the video. So I think we need to do that. So that once again, that's the area. That's all I had. So that just hit me. Once again, I got 3 videos about the electric grid. They're in the description. I probably hook them at the end with the cards. I need to do that for flexing. Facts, good healthy food. I flex in silence, man. And I'm still uncomfortable about saying my salary. Shout out to Black Heights, shout out to Tam, shout out to Textual Chatter. Man, they always talking about salaries. I talk about other people's salaries. I don't talk about mine. I just got comfortable telling people I make 6 figures, man, and I'm old. I'm 50. I'm 55. So I appreciate that, help. So it's just something I need to get used to. So I push them to those, but this is just IT is just a way, really. It's a good career. It's not for me, it's not overcomplicated. I've done probably 12 jobs in IT, and most of those jobs, an average person can do it and make a great living and support your family, travel, like you said, trips, and it just becomes more and more popular. More and more jobs become available because everything's going to the cloud, everything's going to technology. What's not on technology, they're trying to figure out how to optimize it, right? We're going to talk about that the good part of the algorithm, the bad part about the algorithm, and 2 is when you modernize stuff, what jobs are going to get displaced and what new jobs are going to be created, right? So there's good and bad about everything. So once again, it just hit me, and I was like, I predicted that. I predicted the whole U.S. was gonna go down. So, but yeah, I predicted we was gonna have electric grid problems, right? And I'm still predicting that. And 2 is, I think you're gonna get copycats off of this. When people see copycats, you're gonna see more and more people do it. You got a lot of militias out there. People don't realize there's a ton of militias in the United States, and I think this falls under what a militia could do and really cause harm to big space, because if there's any hospitals in there, hopefully you got the backup generator. I worked with some big companies and hospitals. They had generators the size of a 18-wheeler, right? So you can actually have gas or whatever you need to power your hospital for maybe a week, right? But after a week, you're going to be struggling. So you're going to need to start transporting people to other places, right, in your state. But shout out to Duke Energy. They said they're going to be up in Sunday. So when hospitals think about disaster recovery and testing it, once again, I work at Federal, so you got to run a test every year. Their testing is, if we lose power, how long do we have before we got to start transferring people to other hospitals, right? And depending on the length of the trip, what does that look like, right? And some people, it's dangerous to transport them, right? So how long do you keep your whole hospital? Then 2 is, how long do you say, okay, I need to transfer these people because they're easy to transfer, and I need to cut the power on these floors because I need to keep, the critical floor open, and I need to be able to keep that longer, right? So how do you start triaging people and getting them out of? And they need to test that, right? I'm interviewing a CIO of a hospital. He's gonna come on and we're gonna chop it up about that. So I need to make sure I put this in the questions for him. But once again, I'm doing a class at 3:00. We're gonna do AWS. They were in there talking about they can help you with the power grid. So once again, I was just one of my favorite subjects is critical infrastructure, especially the electric grid and how does that work from United States. I do talk money out the streets just watching. Yeah, that's kind of how I am, man. I am. People do it. Shout out to Black Heights, man. He be really talking about it, man. He high dollar guy, right? So he puts his out there. I don't know. I'm still a little queasy about that. So I'm old though, Helman. So maybe that's a young man's game. So once again, I dropped the link if you want to come up. But once again, come to the 3 o'clock. We're gonna touch on Amazon Cloud. Talking about Cognito to be exact, what you use to log on to your web app. Once again, Amazon's got a service for you to make it easy for you. Shout out to them. Once again, I'm out. I'm going to go get a little lunch before I hit the 3 o'clock. Once again, you can always reach out to me. I need to go check my email. I said that. I appreciate that, Helmut. I know you always come check me out. I mean, everybody have a nice weekend. Once again, be safe out there. Figure out what your personal response plan. If you were to lose power for a week, what's your plan? PBO got a gas generator. PBO got wood, so he can put it in a little fireplace. PBO got 100 cans of soup. PBO got 100 ramen noodles. PBO got a little gas grill out there with a little gas. He's gonna be out there grilling steak. Everybody gonna be starving. No, I'm just playing. But what is your personal plan to be ready for that, right? People think I'm joking, but stuff happens, right? So if this was your county, it's not far, really. You could just drive to another county and get a hotel, right? But what if this was the whole state? What if this was the whole nation, right? What is your personal plan? I don't want you to be caught off guard, and I don't want your family to be caught off guard, right? That's one of the things I like to do on my channel is to get you thinking of stuff in the future. Once again, we don't want to be like the Walking Dead, right? So once again, Professor Black Ops, I would say have a great weekend. Come and check me out 3. We're going to touch on little AWS services, trying to get to the cloud and get that cloud back. Everybody have a great Sunday. See you at 3. Oh, let's see when I'm spread for her. Yeah, facts. Yeah, them hurricanes. You got to be ready for it. So my man Helmet's on it. So once again, everybody have a great Sunday. See you out